Hello and good evening and welcome to our webinar this evening from Expats Portugal. Simply, which visa do you need to move to Portugal? And no better person to ask than Carolina Cunha from EI, who has, or A immigrant, or A assessoria immigrant. Good to see you, Carolina. How are you? We're looking forward to hearing your presentation this evening.
Well, hi, Carl, and hi, everyone. Thank you for such a warm introduction. I brought today a presentation. As Carl said, like back to basics, like the most put out questions and how I will address them. And I believe I'll try and make it the simpler that I can in order to touch especially the most beginner-friendly people watching us. And yeah, also I believe Gilda joined, so she will also be with me on this.
Good evening to you, Gilda, working behind the scenes this evening, and I'm sure you'll make yourself known to us.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening to you, Gilda, Queen of the Visas. How are you? Tudo bem?
Tudo bem.
Excellent. Good to see you here tonight. Right, Carolina, over to you. Let's see if we can get your presentation on the screen. And of course, if you do have any more specific questions, hold those for later on when we're not recording. And if you want to ask something quite personal and specific, we can do that. And we'll take the more general questions after Carolina's presentation here this evening. How has your day been in Lisbon, Carolina? How is it there? Is it a nice warm day today in the capital?
Yes, today has been a little less warm than the previous days, but it has been nice.
Wonderful.
I believe it was a calm day. It's approaching August, and I don't know if most people know, but everything stops in August. It's like quite cultural, I think. Everyone wants to enjoy the beach and the amazing weather. So we are feeling the slowing down of the services already. And regardless, we are doing our best every day to still make the delivery that people expect from us. So yeah.
Yeah, still working hard. Yeah, you make a really good point because even though it's still July, next Monday and Tuesday, it might be that this feels like the last week of July as far as the working week goes and the bureaucratic week, institutional week here in Portugal. So do be aware of that, everybody. Thanks for that reminder, Carolina. So yeah, over to you.
Okay, well, let's get started with this webinar. This is our lovely first page with our logo, our #1 migration agency, and the big title is "Which visa do you need to move to Portugal?" So I will touch on the types of visas, most asked questions, and in the end, we will have room for people to put their questions as always. So, who needs a visa to move to Portugal? This is the big question of who will need to go through this bureaucracy. So, to get started, everyone that is not a European Union citizen, including Portuguese, needs one. So, pretty much everyone, including the British, since Brexit. So, yeah, everyone that is not a European Union citizen needs a visa. How long does it take to get a visa approved to move to Portugal? Well, this is a very, very broad question because it depends. Carl, I know you love my answer when it depends. But it really does. So depends on the country, on the person's situation, on sometimes on the characteristics, like the nationality, the income, the whole thing. If a person is applying a single candidate, if it is a family, so everything can contribute to the how long does it take. As well, the place that the person is applying. So applying in the US is different from the timings that it is applying in the UK. And for example, the UK alone, it has many consulates and embassies, and each one is different. So my final answer is technically 60 days, business days, but in reality can be less, especially in European countries. So in the UK is usually a month and a week, but everywhere else is 3 months. So
Okay.
yeah. Now, we are going to be touching on each individual visa, and we are going to speak a little bit about them so that we can spark the curiosity of the listeners. And if they want to then further have more details, we are happy to be more thorough in a consultation, of course. I believe Gilda was going to be more specific about the D2 visa.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about the D2 visa. The D2 visa is the type of visa that we only advise you to do if there aren't any other options. And why? Because it is the most complex one. Why? Because if you apply through an independent professional activity, you need to first open your activity in Portugal as an independent professional and start issuing invoices to the people or the company that you are supplying your services to. And it starts having a tax impact immediately, even before you move to Portugal. And also, depending on the activity that you are providing, this can have an impact in the approval of the visa. But the most common D2 visas are the entrepreneur visas. Many people that already have business in their own countries and want to come to Portugal to start their business here or to move their business to Portugal. So the entrepreneur visa is quite complex. Why? Because you need to incorporate a company in Portugal before you apply for the visa. And this company needs to be already with an open activity when you apply for the visa. So it requires quite a lot of investment before you apply for the visa. The minimum capital that you need to invest, and this is not stated by law, but it's our perception and many years of working with the D2 visa is that they don't accept any company with less capital than 5,000 euros. And even that is like the minimum. So we will always advise you to invest a little more. And then you need to build a business plan where you have to explain what the company is going to do, and you need to show that this company is going to give a social, cultural, or economic impact into Portugal. So in this business plan, you need to work in such a way that the person that is analyzing your process will decide if this company is going to be good for Portugal. And this involves much more documentation than the other visas. You need to set up a bank account for the company, to set up the company, to start paying taxes, to have an accountant, to have a business plan. It helps a lot if you show that you already have an entrepreneur background and all the business that you had before, and your academic education also. So this visa needs to be worked out a lot, and I have to say that since the Golden Visa program ends, many people are looking for the D2 visa from from many countries outside the European Union. And when they come to us and they ask for a quote, this is the most expensive visa that we have, because it requires a lot of work and a lot of preparation. Also, it's one of the visas with the most denials from the consulates. So they require a lot of preparation. That's why when we prepare a quote and when we show a quotation for this visa, it's much expensive than the others. But we have a lot of experience with the D2 visas, and it requires a lot of expertise. So in order for a D2 visa entrepreneur to be approved, it needs to be a very complete and complex visa process. Just another note about the D2 visa entrepreneurs is that you can have a startup visa also inside this type of visa. A startup visa is when you have a company, have an idea, and usually it's related to tech. And you can find a Portuguese incubator that is going to embrace your idea and your project in Portugal. And with that, this incubator is going to issue what is called a startup visa certification. And this means that it's going to speed up the process, and you kind of have a pre-approval of the value of your company in Portugal. And I guess this is it about the D2 visa. Carolina, you may continue.
Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you, Julia. Well, so let's move to the D7 visa. Just like Gilda said, if we can choose any other visa rather than the D2, it's much more simple, easy, less expensive. So even normally, most people that reach out to us looking for a D2 visa, I'm able to rechannel them to either a D7 or a D8 visa, because they already have some sort of income, either passive or income, or passive or active, I mean. And this way, I put them in a possibility of having much less of a bureaucratic burden comparing to the D2. But some other people just don't have any other options, so they choose that one. So even though it's the most complicated one, it's the only choice. So yeah, for those that are invested on achieving a D7 visa, I'm going to explain it a little bit. So this is for retirement, religious, and people living out from their income revenues. So this means passive income. So like money that you are earning that you are not directly working towards. This means pensions, retirements, royalties, dividends. I don't know, rents, it can have many faces, but at the end of the day, it needs to be able to be put into this category of passive income. It is looked for with clients from all ages throughout 18 years old up until 80, 90. I think the oldest ones that we did was for 90-year-old. So it has many possibilities. And the big standout for this one is that the person should always show savings as well, and the passive income source of at least one Portuguese minimum wage. And this is the basis for the D7. As per Portuguese documents, it is as well very important to add the NIF number, the Portuguese bank account, and accommodation in Portugal of at least 1 year. So we can help with all of this Portuguese documentation, but just putting it out there, those as minimums as well. So let's move to the D8 visa. This one is for the digital nomads. So for active income. So this means money that you are receiving that you are working towards. This means salaries, yeah, pretty much it. So this case for the digital nomads, this is like the baby visa. This is the most recent visa that was invented. It has a 1 year old and a few months. So it is very recent, and even though the consulates are already used to issuing it, it is the one that it is a little slower comparing to the D7 one, but not in such a big way. For this one, the minimum income is 4 times the Portuguese minimum wage, so 3,280 euros. For the big criteria, you can either be an employee or a contractor. Both are acceptable. They just require different documents either way. And you will need to show your tax residency, where it is, and the company that you work for or provide services to, their nationalities as well. And for the employees, the consent from their employer is mandatory. The consent, it's pretty much based on a written declaration from the employer and allowing him to work remotely in the first place, and secondly, to allow him to work from Portugal specifically. This is pretty much due to the social security liability and tax liability. So the consulate and the immigration services are protecting themselves from, in the future, companies arguing it, I believe. This is just a personal note that I believe it's why. So yeah, this is the 2 big visas that most people reach out to us looking for. Now, I'm going to address also a big point related to this one. So the families of the D7s
Carolina,
and the D8s.
let me just add something to the D8 visa.
Sure.
Before you move on. There is always a question that people make us regarding the digital nomad visa. Many times they say, oh, I can work remotely, but I'm not a digital nomad because their profession is not related with IT. The name of this visa, digital nomads, doesn't only mean that it's for tech visa. It means for tech professionals. It means that it's for everyone that is able to do their job remotely, like journalists, teachers, all kind of professionals that are able to do their work remotely. This is, I wanted to clarify this because this is one of the most common questions about the D8 visa. The other thing is that many people that come to us to ask for help for a D2 visa because they already have companies in their home country, they want to apply for a D2 visa in Portugal. And also, in that case, we advise people to, through their own company outside Portugal, to apply with the D8 visa, which is going to be less bureaucratic and less expensive. And then once in Portugal, we can help them incorporating their business, but it's going to be less stressful because they are already in Portugal with the D8 visa. I hope this helped you. Carolina, you may
perfect.
move on.
Thank you. Yes, we do that a lot, especially because when you already have a company, you either have a salary or earn dividends. So depending on their answer, we can categorize them in either a D7 or a D8, which simplifies their life much more in going on. But yeah, okay, so I was also reminding of more examples of D8 visas of digital nomads. So we've done like pretty much all professions now, as long as they are compatible with remote work, like YouTubers, business owners from all areas. Gilda said journalists, but as well people that pretty much work abroad. But keep in mind that even if your contract says that you can work remotely, you still need the written consent from the employer, if you are an employee, of course. So yeah, let's move to the families. So this is one of the most questions that people ask me, the difference between an accompanying visa and family reunification. So I'm going to explain each one and then explain why one is better than the other. So an accompanying visa is done at the same time as the D7 or the D8 visa that I explained previously, and the D2 as well. So they are done at the same time. Those family members doing the accompanying visa are piggybacking on the main applicant's process. So if the main applicant succeeds, they succeed. If the main applicant doesn't, they don't as well. So the main applicant must provide for their family. So their minimum is no longer the minimums that I spoke previously. Those minimums are for single applicants. If you are married, have children, your minimum is higher. You go higher depending on who you are bringing. But just to simplify, the process is done at the same time, and you know from the get-go if you and your family are accepted or not. And all the process from then on is on the same timings, on everything it matches. When the first one then receives their permit, the following do as well. Now, for the family reunification, this process is like a last resort process, because here people skip the visa and they just come to Portugal. And with this beginning, you can already see that it cannot go well. So when you do this way, it's, as I said, the last resort option. So it's really for emergencies. You should not use it as a normal occurring site to choose. So in this option, you come to Portugal and your family member already has their permit and you piggyback, but in Portugal. So you must book an appointment in IMA and go there for the appointment, and what counts is your family member already having the permit. If they can provide for you, if they can, it is issued and you are granted the permit. The problem here is that it takes, just for the scheduling of the appointment alone, years. And I'm not exaggerating, like 2 to 3 years now that there are people waiting. And it has the downside of you shouldn't leave Portugal after you enter and you exceed your 3-month tourism visa. You shouldn't actually leave because you will have problems with returning, and it's a whole thing. So the person or this family is stuck in Portugal indefinitely, and it's really a precarious situation. So just prevent all this and do an accompanying visa. Have your family do the process at the same time as you, so that they can have all the same timings. You go together to the appointments. You have everything together. The windows of times are the same. When you travel, your family will be able to travel with you and not be stuck in Portugal, God knows for how long, waiting for the immigration stuff to sort it. We don't know when that will be. Okay, so where do you need to be located to apply for a visa? The location is very important because the consulate will only accept the process if you are applying in the correct place. So a person can apply on the place of their nationality or where they are allowed to reside permanently. Well, not permanently, you can be studying there and allowing it, but you need to be allowed to reside there if it is not on the country of the nationality. So, for example, if a person is an American studying abroad in Germany and they have like a 2-year visa, for example, they could apply from Germany, okay? Or they could apply from the US. So just a simple example. And in the US alone, a person that lives in a state, that state has, so the whole US is divided, at least for Portuguese jurisdiction. So each state has only one place that they can apply. And when a person reaches out to us, we always go check where the state that the person lives and where does it fall into the jurisdiction so that the person can be sure that they are applying on the correct place. People have asked me, well, I don't like the place that is mine to apply. Can I go elsewhere that has earlier slots? No, you cannot. Your process will be returned to you. Even if they accept it, it was someone's mistake, they will return it to you and keep your money. So yeah, don't do it just on the correct place. So you save time if you do it, because it will be going back and forth because it's almost impossible to try and bamboozle the system. Okay, how to get help with your visa application. This is where we come in. We have a visa assistance service, but prior to that, we always recommend that when a person reaches out to us, we schedule a consultation so that I can take an hour of my time, me or anyone from my team, of course, but take an hour of our times and sit down with the person, understand the full picture, the full possibility, and provide a strategy, offer a solution. Or if it is one of those people that have multiple options, explain the pros and cons of each one and help them, give them the tools to make an informed decision. So this is on the consultation. We outline the strategy. And when the person is actually ready to proceed, because sometimes there's a delay on when you are doing your research and when you actually want to come to Portugal, which is a good thing. It's good to have a delay. It means that you were doing it in advance. But whenever you're ready, we have our visa assistance service, which is pretty much, we reassess the situation if a lot of time has passed and things changed. But if things are still the same, we just proceed. And it includes us providing a checklist of all the documentation that it is necessary. And the person gathers the documents, they send them to us scanned, we check them one by one, we provide a commentary to each one individually, and we start preparing the person's documents. So the declarations, the forms, the motivation letter, we do all that for the person. We put it in one PDF so that the person only has to print it and sign where we tell them to sign and go to the appointment themselves. We also do a video call prior to coach the person for the interview itself, reminding them of how much do they need to pay on the day of the appointment, reminding them of the timings and clarify their questions because they always come up. It's normal. And yeah, and then we wait. As I said, between 2 and 3 months. If it takes longer than that, we will intervene and ask for a status update, but it is not that common. Normally, they fulfill the timings up to 3 months. And if something goes wrong, which is not common at all, but it is included, our assistance on that as well. And if things go well, which is the normal side of things, we check if the visa was properly issued, and we remember the person of the next steps. We check when their IMO appointment is and all that. So yeah, this is where the visa assistance finishes, and we present the following service of the residence permit. So we will prepare the person for their appointment in Portugal, here in the immigration services, which is a mandatory step on the residency visa, either one, D2, D7, or D8. So yeah, this is for the full picture of how we can help. We consider ourselves a one-stop shop, so we have services throughout the whole thing that the person needs, or if the person already has like a few details here and there, we adjust accordingly.
Great. Okay. And part of that one-stop shop is Casa Portuguesa, which might be worth mentioning briefly. Your colleague, Carolina Moralia, of course, leads people towards property here, which is part of the visa requirements that you mentioned of renting or even buying a property here in Portugal. So you can help people with securing a residence, literally a residence, as well as a residency. Okay, so there you go. And of course, you can find Casa Portuguesa and EI in the Expats Portugal business directory. We'll go to some of those questions. If you have finished, Carolina, sorry, I'm jumping in there. Okay, perfect. It's great presentation. And thank you for your extra input, Gilda, as well. And we've got some questions from the Expats Portugal members who are here with us, of course, tonight in the Zoom call. You can join them if you become an Expats Portugal member, and you can get a discount on EI's services as well by being an Expats Portugal member. So let's go back to the beginning. Thanks very much, Carolina. Brilliant work. Q&A session now. I don't know if you want to go full screen and take the presentation off the screen there. Whilst we go to the first question. Oh, it just disappeared for me. As your presentation disappeared, so did my questions. Let me get the chat back. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much for these as they came in this evening. Good evening to you, Peda. Jen's got a great question. With many consulates in the country, how to pick which one to use? I think you did mention this. I mean, you don't get to choose, do you? The one closest to you, or perhaps in my case, can I choose one that is in a city that I travel to often? How does that work, Carolina?
Yeah, so all that is already established. So the Portuguese consulates, they draft a document saying, like, for example, in the US, the states, they put like this bunch goes to this consulate, and you cannot choose. You have an official address, so you have like an official state, even if you have more houses than just one. What matters is the official address, and we will check the jurisdiction of that state specifically. Same thing pretty much everywhere. In the UK, there's the counties that are for the Manchester consulate and for the London consulate. So it's mandatory. You cannot be like, oh, this one is it's near me, I prefer this one. It probably will be the correct one, but we should check, because if it isn't, they will not accept it.
Okay, and you don't get to choose, because thanks for that question, Jen. And Peda picks it up saying Scotland has one in Edinburgh, England has two, Manchester and London, Wales has none. I believe that people who live in Wales can go to any of the three, while the Scots go to Edinburgh. So we need to double check that. As we've noted there, you don't get to choose which one you go to. You're told. For the one, thank you, Peda and Jen, on those questions. For the 1 year rental agreement, since we will have to enter into it before applying for the D7, which is of course how it works. Otherwise, you can't get the residency to show for your visa qualifications, and it is an awkward situation to be in. How much leeway is there time-wise? Says Stephen. If we enter into a 1 year rental agreement and do not end up submitting application materials until a month or two later, at which time there would only be 11 or 10 months or whatever left on the rental agreement. That is just part and parcel of this process, isn't it, Carolina? You are going to spend money on a property you might not be able to inhabit straight away.
Yeah, that is completely normal, and they do not raise problems with it, because you are presenting a 1 year rental agreement, and
Right.
it is normal. They know that the landlords will only accept making you one if you start paying right away.
Yes.
So they are very used to it. It's very common.
There you go, Stephen. I know you've got other questions. We'll get to those if we can. And of course, as we said before, when we pause the recording, if you want to ask something that you'd rather ask off air, you can do that at that point. Amber, for the D7 visa, if we're going to have income from a rental property once we leave our home country, but don't have it right now, as we are living in the property. You've probably come across this as well before, I suspect, Carolina and the team. Can we use a property management company document for the income verification? Is that appropriate?
Yes, so in this situation, we've done it in the past and it has worked.
Yep.
So this is pretty much future passive income. So
Yes.
it's you have the real estate, but you are not yet exploring the business of renting it.
Yep.
So you are pretty much telling the consulate, well, in the future, I will do it and I will get this amount and I will. So there's room for problematic situations because the consulate, if they are not sure about it, if you say like weird numbers, like too high of numbers, they will not find it credible. So this company, property management company, doing this letter for you, it's very, very good. It shows like a third party vouching for you, saying that they will be able to find you tenants for in a time span, and also for a range of rent price. So that's a good thing, but keep in mind that it is not guaranteed to work. You should present passive income. You are not presenting passive income. You are showing them a possibility, something in the future. Okay,
Yes.
so normally it works, but you need to be very precise in what you say so that it raises no further questions.
Very good.
When
Thanks for the question, Amber, and thanks for a brilliant answer there, Carolina, as well. I'm going to go back to something Tom said earlier on, and he used a colloquialism to suggest that the Portuguese visa was easy, or the D7 was easy to get with quite low entry requirements. On the one hand, people around the world are very lucky to have relatively easy access to Portugal through, in relative terms, if you look around the world, the D7 is quite favorable in its requirements. He also adds, just don't get too cute. And maybe because EIA are so successful, people do make the assumption it's easy to get into Portugal. You don't want to be complacent in that way, do you, Carolina? Just because you guys are successful at getting people in, that doesn't mean it's easy to get in.
Yeah, it is not. We have such a success rate because we do this all day, every day.
Yeah.
So we have the most updated information possible because there's always someone, let's say someone begins today. I have someone that went yesterday, will go today, and will go tomorrow, and so on. So, and we update the following person's process according to the consulate's feedback previously. So that's how we manage to do it, how we manage to have such a smooth process. Because of volume, we have this possibility of being able to look at it and be very objective about results and numbers and see what the consulates want to see. Even if some other way looks prettier, we just be practical. So yeah.
Yes, I know that's your approach, your conservative approach. So
yes, that was the word I was going to use. We are very conservative, and our successful rates are high because we always go for the safe side.
Yeah.
For instance, just before this webinar began, I got a call from a client saying, Gilda, you told me that I need to notarize the signature on this letter to send to the consulate, but someone told me that they would accept without being recognized. And I told, okay, but the person that is analyzing the process, they can raise a question. And what happens in that case is that then they will suspend the process, they will ask you for the documents with the signature notarized, and then in the meanwhile, you lose like 2 or 3 months.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's better be safe than sorry, and we always ask for the more formalities that we know that further on the way can be a problem.
Yeah, thanks, Gilda. And we shouldn't mistake the success rate of EI and A for Portugal being an easy touch to enter. It's these guys are very good at what they do, which could give you that impression, but they are working hard behind the scenes and working on the conservative, better safe than sorry side to get people into the country. Thank you for that additional contribution, Gilda. I'll do a couple of more minutes of questions and then we'll go off air and we'll address the rest that didn't get addressed during the recorded session. We've got Jose Cruz and Laronda actually helping behind the scenes. Jose Cruz says, I thought at one point they were expediting or prioritizing family reunification appointments. That happened for a little time, didn't it? But it just seemed to go back on the back burner, didn't it, Carolina?
Yeah, it was more for show than for reality. So yeah,
Not in
not
your
really.
experience.
It's
Okay.
no, I'm gonna not say slow. It's completely stopped.
I think it's not
So
even
it's
slow. Right, okay. A standstill. Fair enough. Thank you, Jose, for asking that question. Michael, is it true that the expression of interest for a tourist who found a job in Portugal and is easy to legalize is no longer possible? Well, that's changed, isn't it? And that the new government are addressing that. Would you like to say a little bit more about the manifestation of interest and that approach into Portugal?
Yes, of course. So yes, it is true. It is no longer possible to file new ones, but the ones that were filed in the past, they are ongoing. It is the Michael mentions it is easy. It's not that easy. The expression of interest takes 2 to 3 years,
Yeah.
and the person is stuck in Portugal. So it is as well, it was a last resort option as well. So if this is the case that the person wants to come and find a job and be in Portugal and work here and establish their life here, there is other options, especially the job seeker visa. That one, I mentioned that the D8 visa was the baby visa. The job seeker visa is also a baby visa. They were created at the same time. They are the newer ones. And the job seeker visa will be the answer to these people that would file for expression of interest. They now should do a job seeker visa from their home country, saying, I want to find a job in Portugal, and they are granted a visa, and they come, they find a job, and then they go to IMA and prove that they found it. It is legitimate. They have either a work contract or a service agreement. And if it is legitimate and all, the IMA will give them a permit with just like normal rights as if it was any other permit.
There you go, Michael. Thanks, Carolina, for that. So a couple more quickies before we conclude the recording tonight. Stephen, for the D7 criminal check, it's a check only required from the place applying from. I have citizenship in one country, but applying from a separate country where I have permanent residence. So do you need a criminal record for each country you've lived in?
It depends on for how long have you been living on the country that you are living currently?
Yep.
Because if it is for more than a year, yes, that one is necessary for sure. But it will depend on the amount of years. If you've been there for like the past decade, you will not need the one from your nationality. But if it is something of a 1 year, you are just living there for a year or a little bit more, it's too risky. You should present the one from your nationality as well. So depends on case by case. We always check individual by individual.
Very good. Okay. Thank you for that, Stephen, and Laronda helping with that as well. Oh, Jose Cruz like the use of your word bamboozle there, an application of the word bamboozle, which I'll ask you when we've stopped recording how you came across that word and how you like to throw it into the conversation. I'm married to a Portuguese national. What should I apply for and when? Asked Barry.
Well, in this case, marrying a Portuguese national, it is through the European Union citizen route. So in this case, the person needs to schedule an appointment in IMA through a family member of European Union citizen, which is called a family reunion, not to be mistaken with family reunification.
Yes.
Which the family reunion is a much smoother process because the European Union citizens have special treatment comparing to other nationalities. So yeah, it is through that there. The Portuguese person will go with their spouse and they go together. We have a service that assists in this case. We make the booking for the individual and we prepare them and we go with them on the day of the appointment. And yeah, then they are going to be it's going to be issued a permit for them, and
There you go,
that's
Barry.
it.
Brilliant, Carolina. Thank you very much. Tom's saying, I'm working with Sarah at EI to get my NIF. I'm waiting for finances to send me the bill. They can be Portuguese about that if they like. Don't worry, Tom. They'll be checking. They'll be following you.
I'm not happy with this comment.
Well, you see Gilda after the show, Tom Smith. And we'll get to your questions next, Diana, Colin and Derek, and your questions and comments will come to those after we pressed stop on the recording here. But thanks again to both you, Carolina and Gilda, tonight for being here and answering the question, really. Which visa do people need to move to Portugal? And you've done that brilliantly tonight. One bit of feedback, and I think there's much excellent and positive feedback for you. One comment, excellent presentation, Carolina. And we'll start with your question, Diana B, as soon as I've pressed this button to stop the recording tonight. Don't forget Dream Team at 9. The link is in the comments here on Zoom.